It is 6:16 p.m. Monday, August 24th, 2026. I got my little dinner. This is a great spot to stream. I'm in another corner. I forget who was it who would comment about how I'm in a corner so much. I can put on my makeup here a lot easier too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, this actually makes it way easier. Basically, the idea is I want to be not using my bed for like VR and streaming so much, except for all my sleep stream. But yeah, so now it's like, I don't know, it feels organized. Mm-hmm, Centered, that's for sure. Lucia plays. Hey, Barnacles, that's you. How was your burger? Didn't your mom say, or didn't you say your mom had a burger for you last time we talked? Not eating for 16 to 18 activates autophagy. Good to know. What did you have on your burger? Was it good? I hate to be eating my stuff. Oh, this probably has no swearing.
There's a kind of intelligence that never appears on a resume. And the strangest thing about it is that the people carrying the most of it are usually the last ones to know they have it. Here's what it looks from the outside. Something breaks in someone else's life. A car dies on a Tuesday. A sibling's rent comes up 200 short. A friend gets a diagnosis and goes quiet for 3 days. And by the time anyone has finished explaining the problem out loud, you've already moved. You've already checked what you have. You've already worked out who can be called, what can be canceled, and how much of it you can absorb without anyone noticing you absorbed it. You show up with the thing, sometimes before they knew they needed the thing. And afterward, someone says, honestly, I don't know what we'd do without you. And you say, it's nothing. And you don't tell them the truth, which is that it genuinely wasn't generosity, because generosity implies a decision, and you never made one. Something in you had already started solving before your conscious mind was invited into the room. Most people name
cheese and meat.
They call it being responsible. They call it being the reliable one, the dependable one, the glue. Or they go the other way and pathologize it entirely. They tell you you're a people pleaser. They tell you it's codependency. They tell you you have a martyr complex and you should really work on your boundaries. But this is not a personality defect, and it is not a virtue you chose. It's a specialized, high-performance form of intelligence. And like most intelligences that matter, no exam has ever been built that can see it. Today, we're breaking down the 10 signs of provider intelligence, where in the brain it actually lives, why it was almost certainly installed in you before you were old enough to consent to it, and the specific reason the person who carries everyone is the one nobody ever thinks to carry. Let's start with the science, because psychology spent most of the last century looking straight past this. For decades, everyone learned the same two-word answer for what a human being does under threat: fight or flight. It came out of Walter Cannon's work in the early 1900s, and it hardened into common sense. Then, in the year 2000, a team led by Shelley Taylor at UCLA published a paper in Psychological Review
Go enjoy your chicken.
Almost embarrassing. The overwhelming majority of the stress research the whole model was built on had been run on male animals and male subjects. And when you actually look at what a wide range of humans do when the ground gets unstable, a second response shows up just as reliably as the first. They don't square up, and they don't run. They gather. They pull the vulnerable ones in close. They check the perimeter, and they start distributing whatever is left. Taylor's team called it tend and befriend. Under threat, one system says handle the danger. Another system says protect the dependents and shore up the alliances. Both are ancient. Both are standard equipment. One of them just got 100 years of better press. So provider intelligence isn't a coping style you developed because you were too soft to fight. It's the other branch of the oldest survival architecture we have. But how does that work at the level of the actual machinery? For that, there's a small study I keep coming back to. In 2012, Tristan Inagaki and Naomi Eisenberger at UCLA ran 20 couples through a brain scanner. The woman went inside, with her brain activity being recorded the entire time. Her partner stood just outside and received unpleasant electric shocks. In one condition, she could reach out and hold his arm while it was happening. In another, she held a squeeze ball instead and could do nothing. And in a third, she held his arm while nothing was happening to him at all. That third one matters because it rules out the obvious explanation. When she was actively giving support, a region deep in the brain called the ventral striatum, part of the reward system, the same circuitry that responds to things you actually want, was more active than when she simply touched him with no pain in the room. It wasn't the contact, it was the helping. And there was a second signal underneath it, in a region called the septal area. The more active it was while she was supporting him, the quieter her amygdala was. The amygdala is the threat alarm. So in the same moment the reward system was answering, the fear system was turning down. Now, these weren't regions the researchers stumbled onto. They went looking there on purpose, because both of them belong to the caregiving machinery mammals have carried for millions of years. They're what comes online in an animal mother tending to her young. And the septal area sits at a strange intersection, because it's also tied to the dampening of fear. The best reading of that is that care and fear can't fully run at the same time. So the system that produces care quiets the alarm to make room for it. You cannot protect anyone while you're frozen. Hold the shape of that for a second, because it explains something about you that you've probably never had words for. Providing was not being filed as a cost. Something in the machinery was answering as though it were a reward. That's why you get steadier when it's for somebody else. That's why a phone call at midnight about someone else's crisis feels almost clarifying, while a Sunday afternoon with nothing to solve makes your skin itch. Your nervous system has a setting where it works best, and that setting is called somebody needs something. Now, where did that get installed? Almost always in the same kind of place. Not necessarily a cruel house, often a tired one. A house that was running slightly short of something, and everyone could feel it. Maybe money was the thing that was short, and you learned the price of items long before you were old enough to buy any of them. Maybe it was patience, or stability, or one particular adult's capacity, and you worked out that if you were the child who needed the least, the whole system stayed upright a little longer. Maybe you were the oldest, and somewhere around age 8, you got quietly promoted to staff. Researchers have a name for the structural version of this. Gregory Jerkovic and others have written extensively about parentification, where a child takes on the practical or emotional labor that was supposed to belong to the adults. And I want to be careful here in the same way the researchers are, because the literature does not say this is free. It's associated with real costs, and nobody is going to stand here and tell you the arrangement was fair. But a brain in that house does something completely rational. It works out that the surest route to safety is not to be protected, but to be indispensable. And it starts building for that. It builds forecasting. It builds resource tracking. It builds a very sophisticated ability to detect a need at low resolution and meet it before it becomes a demand. You didn't develop backwards. You developed exactly correctly for a place where being needed was the most stable thing available. So here's what that produced. 10 signs you're carrying provider intelligence. Sign 1. You solve it before it gets announced. Someone starts a sentence with, "So I've got a bit of a situation." And by the third word, you've already got 2 options loaded. You've checked your calendar, you've mentally moved money, you're not listening to the story, you're triaging it. And you sometimes have to consciously slow yourself down so the other person gets to finish, because you've noticed they don't like it when you arrive at the answer before they finish describing the problem. Sign 2. Pressure that would flatten you alone becomes clarity when it's for somebody else. You'll put off your own dentist appointment for 8 months, but if your mother needs a specialist, you'll have 3 names, insurance details, and a parking plan by Thursday. This is the mechanism from the scanner playing out in real life. Your threat system goes quieter when you're carrying. Your own file makes you anxious. Somebody else's file makes you competent. Sign 3. You run a live dashboard on everyone around you. You know who's low, not in a vague way. You know which friend is 1 bad month from serious trouble, which colleague is running on 4 hours of sleep, which family member has been quietly rationing their patience since March. Nobody briefed you. You've been passively collecting resource levels the entire time. Because in the environment you were built in, knowing who was about to run out
did not
is the difference
eat it all,
between managing a problem
but
and being
that is
blindsided.
leftovers for
Sign 4.
probably
You can hold
tomorrow.
bad news without
Should
leaking.
make a
The
good,
test
simple,
result comes
easy
back.
breakfast,
The job
that's
is
for
good.
sure.
The money didn't come through, and you sit with it for 4 days alone, running
Actually,
scenarios,
yeah.
deciding when and how much to tell people, because you calculated that their panic will cost more than your silence. You experience this as protection. It's the same instinct that makes someone stand at the
This
edge of the
feels so
group
much more
and watch the tree
comfortable to
line
be in
while
the
everyone
corner
else
here.
eats. Sign 5.
But there's
You
just
do
so
the
many
portion math
comfortable
automatically.
aspects to
There's a
it.
specific quiet arithmetic you run at every table, and you've run it so many thousands of times that you no longer notice it. How many people? How much is there? Who eats the most? Who's too polite to take seconds? And then you take yours last, and you take it slightly smaller. Out of virtue. It's a reflex, built somewhere that taught you enough was never a guarantee, and that if the system was going to come up short, it was going to come up short at your seat. Sign 6. You measure your day in what got delivered. At 11 at night, you don't audit how you felt. You audit what moved, what got handled, what got sent, who got sorted out. A day where you were content but produced nothing registers, somewhere underneath language, as a day that didn't count. Feelings are not a metric your system was ever taught to log. Output is. Sign 7. You are a genuinely terrible receiver. Someone buys you lunch, and there's a small internal alarm. Someone offers to help you move, and you say you've got it, even though you don't have it. And if you do accept, a repayment schedule opens in your head
Guess I'm a
immediately,
little bit
and
of
it
a
doesn't close until
provider.
it's settled. Watch yourself the
Anywho,
next time somebody gives you something. The thing you feel
maybe
is
I'll
not
watch the
warmth
Kill
of the
Tony
ride,
show. I'm
it's
not
a debt
sure.
being logged.
It's only
Sign
been
8.
26
Your relationships
minutes
are built on
into the
usefulness,
show.
and you have never once checked what's underneath.
I might do
On
a
paper,
live
you're deeply
stream
loved. People rely on
watching
you.
it.
People say beautiful things about you. And still, there's a question you've never asked out loud, because you're not sure you'd survive the answer. If you stopped producing, if you got sick, if you had nothing to offer for 2 years, would the room stay? You don't actually
I
know,
haven't decided
and so
yet.
you never test it. You just keep producing, which is both the loyalty and the insurance policy. Sign 9. You know the
I might
exact
not be on
cost
the
of
whole
everyone
time.
else's life
Well,
and almost nothing about your own. You could tell me your friend's rent, your brother's commute, your partner's worst month of the year, and what your mother is afraid of.
no.
And then someone asks you a simple question. What do you actually want?
Anyway,
And there's a pause that goes on slightly too long.
thank you
And you
for
fill it with something
liking,
reasonable,
commenting,
something
and
everyone would approve
subscribing.
of.
Especially
The
thank you for
instrument you use to
commenting
detect
because it gives me
needs is
something to work
exceptional.
with.
It just doesn't point inward.
So,
It was never installed facing that direction.
I'll do a
And sign 10,
stream
and
tonight
this is the one that gives
probably.
the whole thing away. Peace makes you nervous.
So
Everything
I'll
is
see your
handled.
comments in the
Nobody
next
is in trouble.
stream. Thank you
There
for
is a
joining.
completely open Saturday in front of you,
Bye.
and instead of relief, there's a low hum of